Sydney with Bristow, and this is take 2 of our interview. We tried to do this 2 years ago, and Per was going to be my very first interview in person, and we got it all set up. He came down to Sydney for an event that I attended, and I forgot to turn the lapel switch on. So we talked for 1 hour and there was no audio.
So this is our backup.
And he's a vocal and peak performance coach. So it was kind of ironic that I was interviewing a voice coach and there was no voice.
But we sounded good anyway.
But we put like backing music over it. And he laughed the whole way through because I don't know why. But anyway, so I'm here with Per and a couple of seagulls. So if they kind of make a cameo, an appearance, you'll know we're in Sydney.
Yes.
So right behind it, this is the Harbour Bridge. Do you like that?
Gorgeous, fantastic. I still have not climbed it. Should I?
Yeah, I think
Really?
so.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
I mean, Prince Harry did.
I don't know.
Not that that's got anything to do with the price of fish. But listen, hey, last night I was at Per's event and he did a 3-hour event in Sydney following a 2-day event in Melbourne last weekend, which was about singing. So Per's
Well,
like
was it? That's the question,
What
really.
was it?
it really?
What was it about?
Yeah, so the event was in Melbourne, and that's right, this weekend, and then I did a little seminar about the speaking voice yesterday, like you said. Yes, is it about singing really, or is it about singing? Because we all sing, right? So it's really about releasing not just the physical voice, but our inner voice. And that applies to a lot of situations, whether we are on stage, whether we are artists. Of course, a lot of singers come to my events because they're part of my online training that I provide for singers and speakers. But it's very much personal development, transforming fears into freedom, and yes, stuff like that.
I know a lot about fear because I was petrified of doing this. And Per actually got me in front of the camera because I was going to interview him behind the camera. I was just going to point it at him.
Oh, really?
And Per kind of said, I think you should go in the film. And I wasn't going to. Like, I literally wasn't. It wasn't until you said you should go
Really?
in. Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah, fast forward. I had butterflies that morning when I woke up because I hadn't sort of been on camera at all, really. I wanted to get back to interviewing people because I used to do that on radio, but on radio you don't have to worry about being in front of the camera and it's just the voice and you're just talking about people. But all of a sudden all these fears came in, and they were my own fears of being judged, because when you do stuff like this, you put yourself out for, you know, being ridiculed and judged and
Right.
all that sort of stuff. But I think I was always my own worst, harshest critic. And
Aren't we
like for a
all?
long
Yes.
time I went, no, but I really wanted to do it.
But see, that's a good point, right? Because that's my whole philosophy. When we talk about singing, then it's about becoming freer, becoming more confident. I shouldn't say confident because I also talk about confidence being highly overrated.
Yeah.
But being able to actually release who you are, right? So my philosophy is to give permission. Starts there. Give permission for what people ask? Well, give permission for that.
Give permission to do a lot of things, including stuff up. That's
Yeah.
a huge thing.
Yeah.
Yours.
I mean, like now, like if we were trying to do like super production here and we have to stick to a script and stuff like that, would that be more interesting? You know, I'm all for high quality, but at the same time we can just do a spontaneous little chat here and we'll see what happens, right? The light
Yeah.
is what it is what it is, and I forgot to put on my makeup, so.
Yeah, but Mardi Gras is happening in Sydney tomorrow, so we have a costume decked out for him.
Oh, really?
He will be.
Is that so?
He will be in his utmost bling.
Yes.
Because he's never. I don't think he's ever done Mardi Gras before.
No,
in Australia, so
no,
it'll be
no,
it'll be a first. And apparently, I'm his bodyguard, but
That's what.
that's not gonna happen.
That's what you promised. Do I need a bodyguard?
I'm just gonna let him loose on Oxford Street. You guys know.
Sounds like a fun event. But this is an international audience watching here, perhaps, so they don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, right. So Mardi Gras is probably the second biggest, most famous gay and lesbian, and transgender and bi festival in the world, next to San Francisco. And people come from all over the world for Mardi Gras, and it's on tomorrow night. So
Let's check it out.
yeah, well, I don't know if this video is going to be edited in time for it, but you can check it out next year. So Per,
Yes.
last night you did a bit of Don Corleone from The Godfather with your raspy voice. I kind of like that Marlon Brando thing.
Corleone.
Yeah, I was racking my brain because he did, you know, he was like demonstrating all kinds of vocal ability, vocal techniques, and I'm pretty sure I heard like Don Corleone there.
I have never heard anyone say that.
Well,
I never heard that, but I talked about the voice and how it influences us and how we can can become more influential with the voice, right? So we taught, so if I were to talk like this all the time, then that might come across in a certain way, but it becomes annoying after a while, especially if I'm on stage, right? Kind of scratchy. But if we talk a little bit like this, now we don't know how the voice is picking it up, but I demonstrated that, hey, how are you?
he's trying to do the, you know, the 1-800 calls?
But that's not Don Corleone, is it?
No, Don Corleone, he was a bit more raspy.
Yeah, he's more raspy, more breathy actually, yes. Marlon Brando's character. Yes, but the voice is a fascinating instrument, it really is. So then when we become better at understanding how to, not only how to use it, but how to train it. Most people think, oh, I have to learn how to use it. Speak faster, speak slower, do this and that. Yeah, but it's about training, it's about building muscles. That's what I'm for. Now, I can show you some things so you can run faster, but the magic happens when you actually develop muscles so that you therefore can easily run faster.
Well, Per used to be a former pro athlete.
Not pro.
Elite athlete, okay.
But it's interesting with sports because a lot of what I do, I draw from my sports background, and sports is interesting because it teaches you how to understand your body, hopefully, what's a good pain, what's a bad pain, teaches you discipline, and for my own sake, it was even more the mental stuff, how to perform when it matters the most. So that's why a lot of what I do is the peak performance training. And when it comes to that, it's not about not having fears, it's about becoming aware of fears and then having tools to do something about it. If we never have fears, then that's kind of boring. No.
Yeah.
But if we take on a big challenge, we're going to experience some kind of fear. So that's good. That means it's special. Nervousness is good. So we just have to learn how to use it, and there are ways to, so that's a developed skill. As is using the voice is also developed skill.
You mentioned skill, like you talked about skill development and talent quite a bit, because Per used to also play the violin. Do you still play the violin now?
I don't, no.
No?
No.
Well, he used to be like supposedly a child prodigy, but he really didn't take too well to being called like what was it, a genius?
Yeah,
really talented.
it's
so why?
I don't like the word talent at all because I don't understand what people are talking about. We tend to use that word talent in so many different ways. If we're talking about the skill someone has, then use that word instead. Use skill. I love the skill you have developed. Right?
Do you think there's a difference?
Instead of saying you're so talented. Yes, because then we also use the word talented as if it's a given gift. It's a natural talent. You're so talented, meaning you were born with something. Well, how do you know what someone was born with? That person has worked for it a lot. Now, we're all different, we understand that, but the word talent is very vague. So the only thing that we know is the skill that someone has in the moment, but we don't know what that person can do tomorrow.
Yeah.
And you don't know what lies behind that skill that you see today. So we all love to judge people's talents, right? Which embedded in that belief is that I can now judge what you are going to become. No, you can't. Most people who become successful are frankly successful despite of what people have told them, not because of what they told them. So, I mean, a lot of people actually do things that they were not good at.
Yeah.
So I do not play the violin, but of course a lot what I learned through my violin training, I'm immensely grateful for today. But this thing about sitting and talking or speaking on stage, I never did that. So then if I become good at that, does that mean I always had hidden talent, or does it mean I did not have the talent, but I've now developed the skill? Who's to say? We can't judge, so I don't like judging either. So therefore, let's not use the word talent.
Well, all right, but let me play the devil's advocate for a bit
Okay.
here. So what about these 3-year-olds that play the piano like Chopin. I'm pretty sure they haven't had skill development. Where does that come from, though?
What, do you think they sat down and played Chopin just through nothing? It's that old thing, you know, it's not the old belief, yeah, Mozart played so-and-so and he wrote this composition at the age of this and that. No, he didn't. The things that he did at 5 and 6 were pretty not super special. His early composition were edited by his dad. He had a dad who was a super high-level violin player, who was the extraordinary teacher. That's what he grew up with. He grew up with training all the time. When he was in the womb, he was hearing music all the time. So of course he's developed in that sense, right? And then when he wrote the real, you know, pieces of work, he had studied for a decade.
Yeah.
It's a young age,
yeah.
But he started early, right?
Yeah.
So again, you know, it's so easy to just say, oh, it just came naturally. No, he was obsessed. He did it all the time. He did nothing else, probably.
But
right?
do you deny that some people have more of a propensity or a gift to hone their craft?
Of course. Of course. I'm not saying that. Absolutely we have that. That's what makes us all unique. And part of our thing in life is to discover what our uniqueness is, what our genius is in that sense, right? If we use that word. What is it that we're good at? What should we therefore really spend more time doing and developing, rather than perhaps wasting time on developing something that we have no desire, it's going to be really tough for us to develop. On the other hand, we also tend to fall in love with stuff that comes fairly easy to us, perhaps. So therefore, that's what we tend to spend time doing, right?
Yeah.
So you know, there's a lot of stuff that goes behind a skill. The coordination and what the brain is doing, and all these kind of things, that how the nervous system is reacting, what we've been exposed to even before we were born, what we exposed to music, what are we exposed to as kids. So yes, we're absolutely different. The question is, who has the ability to actually judge that? And that's what annoys me when people say singing is one of those things, right? Either you can or you can't. People say that. So where did you get that from? The people who say that are either people where it comes naturally, and they say, hey, I've never had training, I've never had any lessons, it's just come naturally. Well, then you ask that person, so when did you start singing? Oh, from a child, I've always been singing. Well, there you go. That's called training. Oh, I've never taken lessons. That has nothing to do with taking, what does taking lesson mean? You've been engaged in the activity, right? And then we have the people who say, yeah, I can never sing and so forth. Those are the people who were shut down early, never explored their voice. And of course, later on, it's going to be tougher. They're not going to be as good as someone who's started from an early age. That's fairly obvious, especially when it comes to physical activities and sports and stuff like that, or even intellectual.
Because you have had quite a few people in your audience that have taken your seminars and courses that have drastically or dramatically made huge shifts in their voice and sung when they didn't think they could sing, or just yeah.
And the satisfaction there, then, that feeling of being able to sing or release their voice and becoming freer, is a profound feeling. And it's not up to someone else to judge how good or bad that person is, unless you're going up there in the professional situation and you're expecting to be paid for it. Then it's a different thing. Now you have to create a value where people actually are going to pay for you. That's a different thing. But singing is for everybody. We can argue that we all sang before we were able to construct words into sentences. We could argue that every culture sings unless it's repressed. Every child sings unless it's repressed, right? Until we're told to shut up. So who is to decide who is allowed to sing? So there's always someone who posts on my Facebook page, oh, you shouldn't be fooling people to believe they can learn to sing. And some fool people. Look, if I want to take tennis lessons and get better at playing tennis, am I allowed to do that, or do I have to beat Roger Federer in order to be allowed to play tennis?
Exactly.
Right?
You can just train yourself to sing in the shower the best that you can and never have an audience.
And with tennis, it's also going to become more fun if I can actually return a serve, right?
Yeah.
Or if I can actually make a serve go in
Yeah.
is actually more fun if I can get the ball over the net. So therefore with skill development, an activity becomes more fun. And that's of course the same thing with singing. If you actually can hit notes and if you're going to sing in harmony, things like that, then you need to develop the skills so you can do that. So
because you were in the production, like I was going to say Peter Pan, but it wasn't Peter Pan, it was Cats back in Sweden when you were younger.
Yes.
So how many shows did you do all up?
how many shows?
It was like hundreds, right?
Well, I mean, I had one of the leading roles in the two biggest box office successes at that time.
And you were never
I've done other shows
wanted
also,
to sing before that. Like, did you have a passion to sing prior to that, or it just was something?
Well,
I
started singing in high school.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's because I started playing the bass in a band, and we started.
Because you wanted to be
singing.
cool and get the girls, I think. I think that was the main reason.
Is that it?
I'm judging. Wait. Talking about judging though, like that's a huge
But was
topic.
that a joke, or have you heard me say that? Were you joking?
I don't know.
Let's face it, there's a reason why we want to get attention.
Yeah.
Especially in high school years. And if someone is really shy and introverted, that becomes a good way to get attention. And we all want to be loved, we all want to fit in, we all want to get attention somehow. Nobody likes to be rejected. And in that area, it can be tough. Especially for guys, no?
Right, but then just to kind of like decide on singing, you know, most guys will be like, I'm going to be like this athlete.
Well, I was an athlete.
Oh, see, Taz one of these jack of all trades. He's like done everything and more. But no, like I really want to talk about the judgment thing, because I think that is such a huge thing for why people don't step up or express themselves or come forward. And I know it's taken me years to do this as well, because, you know, after MySpace started, Facebook, YouTube, like once it really kind of hit the ground running, everyone was doing it. And like lots of people found it easy, more so than others. But just the amount of trolling, the judgment, the critique.
That's right. Yes.
Like from, you know, anyone and everyone out there, but I find that your own self is probably the worst. Like for me, I can read comments, but no one would come close to my own harsh judgment of myself. Like I don't know about you guys.
So the question is, what are we afraid of,
Yeah.
right? So going back to the high school, because you were making a joke, but that's actually really serious stuff, because we are so afraid of being rejected.
Yeah.
That's really painful.
Yeah.
Right? So therefore we don't dare, we don't, right? And then if we dare, then everything, like approaching a girl, for example, and you approach somehow awkwardly, and then of course being in that awkward, it becomes a total failure, and then you don't want to do that again, and then it's like such an embarrassment, and you're humiliated and all that stuff, right? That's painful. That's like death, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not joking about that, because if we talk about our ancestors, we have to fit in, we have to be loved in order to survive. So it is a survival instinct, right? And mating, connecting, that's a survival thing. So it's actually serious stuff, and that's what always goes on with us. We're always afraid of being rejected. We're always afraid of what people are going to say about us, and this and that, right? Do we fit in? Are we going to be loved? Are we going to be respected? Is it okay? And then we get into that feeling that we're never good enough.
Do you think we have an inbuilt mechanism just to instantaneously look at someone else and project? Because it's just like second nature for people just to look at someone, and for me, like I'll always catch myself whether I'm judging or making a discerning observation, because I feel like one's more neutral, but it does come automatic. Like you do feel like it's like second nature. You're almost making some sort of assessment.
Yeah, that's right. So that's good that you have that awareness. I think most people do not. Because what we want to recognize is that when we feel we're being judged, we are the ones who are doing the judging. So
explain that a bit, because that was interesting.
If you feel self-conscious, you feel that, let's say I work with artists, right, and now going into an audition, now they feel they're being judged. But in the moment you're feeling judged, you actually are judging them, that they are supposed to have some kind of opinion about,
Yeah.
right? And they might sit there completely open-minded and just see, and they might love you, they want to love you, they want you to be good, they want you to be everything that's going to solve their production, they want to hire you. But for some reason you've come in there with judging them that there's something, looking at the bad stuff about you or something. So what do you know? So if you have a tendency to judge people or judge situations, let go of that. Things just are. Of course we have opinions, of course we do. We have different perspectives on things. But letting go of judgment is not easy, but extremely powerful. So that's why my whole philosophy is about giving permission to do whatever, right? That doesn't mean that we're lowering our ambitions, quite the opposite actually. So if we go back to high-level sports, right, giving permission to fail doesn't mean I want to fail or that I'm going to fail. It means that I'm not afraid of failing, and therefore I will rise to a higher level. It sounds maybe counterintuitive, but it's really not, right? The person who's afraid of making the mistake is also the person who's going to make the mistake.
So you might as well just make it.
Right? Yes, but see, that's not even a thought process of am I going to miss, am I not going to miss? That doesn't exist in your mind in that moment, right? So that's why we train to get into so-called flow state, be in the present moment, where what's going to happen in the future is irrelevant. I just see something and I do it. So, but we can't get there unless I have this nagging thing, is like what are the consequences if I miss, right? Michael Jordan had that famous quote, I never consider the consequences of missing the last shot of a game.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, right? The consequences don't exist at that moment. It just is. So, and that's of course creativity. That's what creativity is all about, right? If you're writing something, you can't be correcting your spelling mistakes because you never get something out. That happens afterwards. You go back and edit. So, unfortunately, with singers, they're always trained to use their ears to hit the notes and stuff, and that becomes a huge problem. Because they're constantly judging themselves. If they're hitting the notes, am I flat or sharp? They think it's, oh, I'm just being aware. No, you're judging. And they don't like it. Oh, my voice cracked and all that kind of stuff, right? So that's why when they do my method, they suddenly become free. It's like, whoa, I never knew it feel so free to sing. And that is also how you develop muscles, because now you access muscles in a different way, but also, so it becomes effective learning.
So that's interesting, because I never thought about muscles when I think about speaking and voice, and I know with myself, I have often talked really fast and just talked within my mouth. I've never really used my diaphragm or my stomach, or it's just it's concentrated in this area, and it was something that I noticed. But you're not listening to, well, if we're not being a singer, like just a normal person talking, you're not kind of listening to yourself talk. Well, you are, but you're not conscious of how you're talking, sort of. Correct. I think. Because you're just talking.
Which may be good or bad. Yes. So lack of awareness is not something we want to have awareness, of course. But in the process of training, I teach you how to feel and to stop listening, because listening automatically taps into the judgmental part of your brain. And that's what singers do all the time. They're always judging themselves. So when we let go of that and start feeling, physically first, I'm not talking emotionally, but physically, you start recognizing things within you and muscles that you didn't know you had, and how to get the range and flexibility and all that kind of stuff. And then the voice comes out much freer, because you're not concerned about the sound, you're concerned about the physical feeling. And then you recognize, wow, it sounds so much better. Of course it does, because it's freer. And that also makes your voice healthier, longevity, and people comment all the time. They say, I had my gig now after I've done a few lessons, and wow, I've never sung so freely. Oh, those high notes just flew out of me. I don't know what happened. That's a beautiful feeling. And so for a professional who can experience that, now becomes far more attractive for the audience, not because the audience notices the difference, they have nothing to compare with, but because the performer has that sense of freedom, and now they become more open and more charismatic. They're trying less to prove themselves or show off, but now it becomes communicating with the audience. And even if for those people who have never sung before, who experience that, it becomes like, it's like a transformational experience. It's just that's why it's called Sing with Freedom and Speak with Freedom. That's the names of my training.
Yeah, because Per has 2 different courses online, but he also does actual live events, and his next one is going to be in New York next month. Oh no, we are in the Pinch and a Punch for the first day of the month. I thought I'd get that in because it's the first of March, yeah. But it's happening.
Not yet in LA.
A few weeks. Did I say LA or New York?
No, I'm doing the event in New York, correct, but I live in LA.
But he lives in LA.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there is still a day behind there.
Oh, yeah, but by the time they listen to this, it's going to be March.
I know. Hey, by the time you listen, it might be a year later after we did this talk. But that's okay. There's always something going on.
But you know
that's
what?
That's okay.
Wait.
It will still be relevant.
Yeah, it'll still be relevant.
Yes.
One more thing, and I think this is something that we talked about in the first interview with No Sound, that I really kind of want to get to the bottom of, just to peck at a little bit, is this whole thing that Per talks about having charisma on stage, and I don't know, that word doesn't sit well with me, so I'm just trying to figure that out, because maybe it's my perception of what charisma means.
You tell me. I don't know.
Maybe it's
what
the
is
meaning
charisma for you?
Well, you're the expert.
Basically, you're saying, but Per, you have no charisma on stage. So what are you talking about?
No, I'm thinking. I think again, this is like the talent question about talent, as to whether it's something that people can manufacture, create, can develop, or it's something that is inherent and innate in them. You know, like some people have it, whatever it is. Can charisma be developed? And I'm not saying that I'm an advocate for it or not. I'm just wondering, in general, there is genuine charisma, genuine impact that certain people have when you walk into the room and you can feel certain people have different kinds of charisma, and
really,
some people have.
You feel it? Okay.
I feel like some people have a real heartfelt, genuine,
so where
authentic one.
Where am I on that scale then? I'm just curious.
Do I have to tell you? He's like.
This is not good. It's like, oops.
No, I just mean in general, because I feel like it's a word that's.
Okay, fine. So I get it. I think we are more charismatic at certain times and less at certain times. Sometimes I just want to hide. I'm an introvert. I want to have nothing to do with anybody, and of course have no charisma whatsoever in those moments, right?
Okay.
Like when I'm on an airplane, for example. People want to chat with people on airplanes, and I'm like. So that's me but I'm an introvert, right? That doesn't mean we're not charismatic. But then when we become engaged in human beings, that is then when we become more interesting, and that's, I think we could argue, that we then become charismatic. If we are there to prove something, or show off, or do stuff like that, then it's not charismatic in my opinion. Charisma has to do, actually I like the Swedish word. I'm from Sweden originally. So the Swedish word is utstrålning, and it means out, and strålning, rays.
Stråling.
So the rays that emanate from you.
Ah, that's beautiful.
Yes, and that has to do with, again, releasing the restrictions. So if we are in fear, restrictions, self-consciousness, judgment, all that kind of stuff, that is going to diminish how we actually come across, how we actually shine.
So if that was a direct translation for how we understand charisma, I'm with it. I'm like 100% down with that interpretation, like rays coming out and just expressing.
Yes.
But I think charisma, the way people tend to view it in like the English dictionary, I'm going to have to look that up, like attractive, charming, like it sort of seems a bit put on or artificial, like it doesn't have that real Swedish kind of...
Yeah, But what's charming to you? Something that's not real? That's not charming, is it?
No, not
That's
necessarily.
not charismatic, is it? You think that other people that think that person is charismatic when you don't, because you think it's put on, it's not real.
Possibly.
All right. So what you feel is charismatic is actually someone who's open and warm and has qualities that attract you. Great. That's what I mean. That's what I think.
What do you mean?
That's what I think charisma is. I don't think charisma is anything that's...
Ah, okay.
We're talking about the real stuff. When the real you shines, right? When you come alive, when you become engaged. So therefore, can that be developed? Of course it can, because what's holding that back then is, again, all these fears, the beliefs, stuff, and then often we overcompensate, and that's when we try to put stuff on, like, oh, trying to be funny, and we're trying to be this and that, and we probably all fall into those traps once in a while, right?
Yeah.
But
because we're trying to put our best foot forward.
Yeah, but why not? Because we all have fears. It's like we shouldn't pretend like we don't have fears. So of course we do have.
Yeah.
Like again, if we go back to the high school, right? If I'm trying to be charming and charismatic and trying to say something cool and nice and funny, and it's like, ha ha ha, right? And then it totally falls flat. That's not very charismatic, right? It was like this guy was trying to be charming, trying to be funny, trying to be something, but sorry, it didn't work, dude. So obviously it was an attempt, but that was not very charismatic in that moment, not to that person. I'm sure we experience people differently also, right? It's not that we have one, yes, that person is charismatic, no, person is not. You might be more attracted to that person than the other.
I hear you. I think it's the person's individual interpretation of that word, I think.
I think if someone makes you laugh, if someone makes you feel good, if someone makes you feel comfortable,
but I probably wouldn't use the word charisma.
Someone make you safe, then you would say that person is charming. No, or maybe charismatic, or maybe not. So I don't know. Yes, words are always interesting because we of course have different interpretations of words. But anyway.
Tell me about your next event in New York. You reckon you're going to top Melbourne? You reckon it's going to be better than Melbourne?
Well, of course,
Why?
because it's always about improving.
Ah, okay.
That's my whole philosophy.
Does that mean that we have to travel to New York
That's what
now?
I teach. Yes, kind of.
So, on that note, before the sun goes down and the seagulls start, and people are doing their after work stroll and run and jog and walk the dog around here, catch Per online, like his website, Bristow.com or thesingingzone.com. He's got courses online. Our alarm thingy is going off. And he'll be in New York. When are you coming back to Australia?
I don't know. Am I invited? Can I come back?
If you want him to come back to Australia, tell us in the comments below, and he'll do a speaking seminar, maybe, perhaps.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. 2-day or 1
day. Honestly, I love Australia. There's something about Australia that I really like. I haven't quite put my finger on it. Maybe it's because it's so charming and charismatic or something. Anyway, so go out there and be aware of your fears and give yourself permission and. Let go of judgment as best as we can, or become aware of when you tend to judge yourself or judge others, and maybe we come alive in different ways. Thank you.
Thank you, Per.
Thank you.
Sound! Woohoo!
Awesome.
Perfect.
Let's go and save your car.
All right, where was my seat? There?
No, you have to be in. No,
because we need that. I can't be that close to you.
But are you in frame now? Because I had my arm here. You said you had to be in the frame.
There?
Well, now you're okay. So.
Baby.
Okay.
Yeah, but I want that.
Go and see if you're in frame. I'm gonna sit there.
No, but you're too close, and we won't see the harbour bridge if you move in like that.
No.
Yeah, you've blocked it. Go back.
No, but stop it.
Oh, me.
This is
I'm still in front.
This is where you're sitting.
Yeah,
Are you
I'm good. I'm in.
Okay, this is where you were.
I'm in. Oh, whoa.
This is where you were, and this is where I was.
Okay.
There you go. No, you got too far.
What are you?
Okay, fine. Hi. We're just arranging some. Oh, nice. This is perfect.
Wait, the clouds just came.
That's perfect. That's great.
Right, now I've got the wires caught around my feet.
Are we recording?
Yes, we are.
This is actually the moment that we're going to
This
put
will be
on
the bloopers at the end.
Instagram. This is the Instagram.
Oh.
Wait, I gotta fix my hair. Makeup.
I'm gonna go back to sleep. I only had 5 hours of sleep last night.